Jackie always chose men of the same fatal type for her. This strong, intelligent, calculating woman was drawn to danger. A quiet life did not tempt her. She needed a hard, strong-willed, unpredictable man. 1966, Seville, a charity ball. The role of the evening's great beauty belongs to Grace, Princess of Monaco. Luxuriant fair hair, dazzling shoulders wrapped in white mink, a scatter of diamonds, and a pert little nose. Suddenly, the princess is left alone. Her admirers have rushed to the doors to greet a tall woman with a mass of hair, dressed in a deliberately modest gown. Entering the hall, purposefully a full hour late, is Jackie Kennedy, the most famous widow in the world. The woman who 3 years earlier had laid her wedding ring in her husband's coffin. 10 minutes pass, and not a single gentleman has approached Grace. Every man at the ball hurries toward the living legend, the one who had vowed fidelity to a dead president. Tears of vexation well in the princess's eyes. She turns and leaves for the ladies' room. Jackie openly savors her rival's humiliation. She has her own scores to settle with the former film star Grace Kelly, and she has done everything just right. She always did everything just right. There was no better actress. Every detail of her appearance, every trait of her behavior was thought through to the last detail and observed with unwavering precision. Jackie kept iron loyalty to anything that worked in her favor. She smoked a pack a day, but not a single photographer ever managed to catch her with a cigarette. Women standing next to her in pictures might look uncomposed. Someone's hairdo would be askew. Someone would forget to straighten a scarf. Jackie was always trim, perfectly coiffed, and superb at keeping face. Any photograph could go straight onto the cover of Vogue. For many years, she lived a double life. In the first, meant for the public gaze, Mrs. Kennedy played the role of inconsolable widow who had devoted her life to the memory of her innocently slain husband and to caring for their children. The second was full of men. Jacqueline broke up marriages and lived with relatives of her late husband. Thanks to her, the Kennedy clan turned into an early semblance of a Swedish family. Bobby Kennedy, a moral man and a great idealist who took up his brother's political relay baton, inherited both his widow and, for the rest of his life, the feeling of being a bigamist. Yet in public, Jackie behaved so modestly and with such tact that it never occurred to anyone to suspect her of anything of the sort. She had a powerful gift for suggestion. Jacqueline Kennedy managed to convince the entire world that she was a great beauty, and yet her feet were too large, her face too wide, and her eyes set far apart. She did not fit Hollywood standards, but none of that mattered. Jackie Kennedy's intimate life would have sufficed for several ordinary women. Jackie was utterly enchanting. No one else could so bewitch a conversation partner. There was nothing fake about it. She had a huge, genuine interest in people. Everything happening around her absorbed her completely. She also had impeccable tact. She never allowed herself a single word about her private life, not the slightest hint about the affair between Kennedy and Marilyn Monroe, not a single story about Onassis and his relatives. Legends surrounded Jacqueline's taste. Jackie's style, her hair, her makeup, the shape of her sunglasses, her famous pillbox hat became a signature American commodity. But she was not the mistress of her own fate. Some fatal predestination compelled Jackie to choose men of the same, fateful to her, type. This strong, intelligent, calculating woman was forever drawn to danger. A quiet life did not lure her. She needed a hard, strong-willed, unpredictable man. The beginning was laid in the childhood of the future First Lady. Jacqueline Bouvier belonged to an old line. Her first American ancestor had emigrated from France. He was a Bonapartist and a close friend of the emperor's brother, Joseph, the King of Spain. Yet that Bouvier did not belong to the aristocracy. By trade, he was a cabinet maker, and once settled in the United States, he made a fortune speculating in land. The Bouvier rose quickly. They allied themselves with the Morgans and entered the social register. John Bouvier III, Jackie's father, inherited $750,000 and squandered it. By the end of his life, his fortune was estimated at only $100,000. He abandoned Jackie's mother, Janet Lee, the daughter of a Chicago millionaire. When Jackie married Kennedy, he got so drunk that he could not make it to the church. Nevertheless, he was a good father. John Bouvier dressed his daughters, paid for their education, and the girls' habits and tastes formed under his influence. He became Jacqueline's ideal of a man. She regaled her boarding school friends with stories of Daddy's romantic exploits. That stayed with her forever. All her life she sought predatory and inconstant destroyers. John Bouvier was dark, tall, and carried himself like Clark Gable. In society they called him the Black Sheik, Black Jack, or the Black Tulip. No one had such elegant suits. No one shone so brightly at balls. No one could boast such a rich collection of women. 2 days after marrying Janet Lee, Black Jack launched into a new affair. Women were drawn to the aura of danger radiating from him. Jackie learned to love that scent as well. And for the Kennedy family, that scent was native. In the restless, loud Irish clan, everyone competed with everyone, and everyone would fight to the death for one another. At home, the children brawled furiously. On the street, they banded together against outsiders. Joseph Kennedy, the patriarch, father of the future president, was tender and respectful with his wife, and at the same time kept an entire harem of stewardesses, dancers, and aspiring Hollywood starlets. His children's views of family life formed under their father's influence. John Kennedy was convinced that a wife should not be concerned with the number of her husband's mistresses. Washington buzzed with legends about the young senator's wild life. He seduced anyone and everyone. On Saturdays, brought fresh girls to the Kennedy compound at Hyannisport, and on Sunday mornings, his secretary drove them to the train station. Kennedy tried not to clutter his head with their names. The girls answered to darling and sweetheart, and that was quite enough for him. Washington had seducers aplenty, and if that were all there had been, John Kennedy would not have drawn Jackie like a magnet. But there was something mystical in his charm. Kennedy, like his whole family, felt betrothed to death, and that sense passed to those around him. His elder brother was killed in the war. One sister lost her mind, another died in a plane crash with her fiancé, and he himself barely survived after the Japanese sank his patrol torpedo boat. Every day John Kennedy lived was a gift from fate. He was incurably ill and often had to stand up on crutches. His spine was diseased, and surgery was out of the question. Kennedy suffered from adrenal insufficiency, later known publicly as Addison's disease. The result was overall weakness and reduced resistance. In the late 1940s, doctors said he had no more than a year to live. Later, John began receiving hormone injections that held the illness at bay. The Kennedy family kept caches of the medication across the country, and the senator used it during campaign trips. The flip side of the treatment was that the shots inflamed the patient's sexual drive. Death was a constant theme in John Kennedy's conversation. According to friends, he preferred death by a bullet to any other. Death always breathed down his neck, and so Kennedy lived at full stretch, tried to be a dazzling conversationalist and an irresistible cavalier. Marrying him was like leaping into the Grand Canyon, and Jackie decided to do it. The Kennedy clan's money also played its part. But it was far from paramount. Jackie's mother had married, for her second husband, Hugh Auchincloss, one of the richest men in the United States of America. And Jacqueline herself had by then graduated from George Washington University, spent a year in Paris, and returned home a charming young woman, an ornament of New York and Washington salons. There were many beauties, but next to Jacqueline they faded. She was intelligent, substantial, quick-witted. One sensed a hint of mystery in her. Jackie always said less than she could have said. She saw straight through her interlocutor, and he often elicited her irony. But her restraint never failed her. Jackie knew how insecure and sensitive men can be. Vogue awarded her its Paris prize, but she did not go to receive it. She told reporters she was afraid she might stay in Paris forever. In truth, the reason lay in the memories that tied her to France. A cramped elevator stuck between floors, a heap of scandalously crumpled clothes, a man and a girl pressed to each other, a rucked-up skirt, lowered trousers, faces contorted by a spasm of love. Yesterday Jackie turned 20. Today she lost her virginity. She was seduced by John Marquand Jr., a writer about whom no one ever learned. When the elevator started again, Jackie whispered, "Is that all?" She would have occasion to repeat those same words to John Kennedy. Her husband had plenty of ardor but little strength, and his technique, according to his girlfriends, left much to be desired. But that was still far off. Jackie meets Kennedy at a Washington reception, seizes the moment to interview him. She was freelancing as a photojournalist for the Washington Times-Herald, and receives an invitation to Hyannisport. The senior Kennedys are delighted. They could not have dreamed of a better match for John. Jackie is horrified. She is far too well-bred compared with the girls of the Kennedy clan, and they pounced on her like a troop of guerrillas. She never forgot how one of John's sisters mocked her enormous feat. "You ought to be playing football, baby." But danger beckoned, and she returned to Hyannisport. One of Kennedy's close friends was kindly disposed toward her. He saw where things were headed and told Jackie all about his pal's romantic escapades. After that, she could think of nothing but him. "I want only one thing," Jacqueline confessed to her sister, "to marry John." He wanted it too. His new acquaintance was nothing like the girls with whom he usually passed the time. Jackie was intelligent, sharp-tongued, and read far more than he did. Kennedy was intrigued and thus defeated. But a hardened bachelor could not bring himself to propose. The words, "be my wife," stuck in his throat. John found a way out. He waited until the newspaper sent Jacqueline to Europe and proposed by telegram. The Kennedys and the Auchinclosses held the wedding, and after a year of married life, Jackie earned the first neurosis of her life. Strange as it may seem, she held romantic views of marriage. She wanted to be Jack's closest person, to stroll hand in hand along the shore and read poetry to each other. But it did not turn out that way. The third party in their union was the entire Kennedy clan. Once Jackie gave her husband a painter's palette with colors. She hoped they would paint landscapes together. The idyll did not happen. John's sisters and their numerous offspring immediately seized the palette. With squeals and squabbles, they divided the paints, squeezed tubes onto sheets of paper, and smeared anything within reach. An hour later, Jackie had a migraine. An hour after that, the poor thing burst into tears. After that, she abandoned all hope of quiet family happiness. Jackie suspected what awaited her even during the engagement. While discussing the prenuptial terms, her mother gave John a trying time, but he found a way to get even with Mrs. Auchincloss. The bachelor party took place at his future mother-in-law's estate. Wine was poured into 18th-century crystal goblets, and Kennedy announced that by an old Auchincloss family tradition, after drinking, everyone should hurl the glasses into the fireplace. $50,000 shattered to smithereens. Mrs. Auchincloss turned to a pillar of salt, and Jackie wondered whether she had been hasty in her choice. She would return to that thought more than once. Her father cheated on her mother 2 days after their wedding, and John began to amuse himself soon after the honeymoon. He met women in Washington, in a secret apartment rented jointly with a fellow senator. Soon he was elected president, and even then he did not settle down. Marriage did not suit his nature at all, and he saw no reason to deny himself life's pleasures. One of his girlfriends introduced him to marijuana. Sinatra, who supplied the president with girls, joked that one fine day Jack would get so high he would be unable to press the nuclear button. 2 blondes from the White House typing pool, Kennedy fondly called Fiddle and Faddle. Jackie knew what the president did with them in his office. She called the girls the White House hussies. Soon after the wedding, the couple bought an old estate, Hickory Hill, and Jackie brought in an army of paper hangers, furniture makers, and designers who turned the house upside down. Wallpaper was constantly being stripped and rehung. One set of furniture replaced another. Astronomical bills arrived, and Kennedy complained to friends that he felt like a perpetual mover. After her husband was elected president, Jackie set to work on the White House. Antique furniture was brought in. To give the wall panels an air of age, cracks were artfully applied. In a Connecticut manner, Jackie spotted antique wallpaper. It was steamed off and taken to Washington. At receptions, Jackie invited writers and artists. She found them more interesting than bureaucrats and bankers. She lived her life, John lived his, and yet, strangely enough, together they were happy. They were very much alike. Both were, above all, actors and delighted in the performances they staged for each other. They knew how to stun a conversation partner with an unexpected question and then coax him to bare his soul. They loved to gossip. They were obsessed with sex. Above all, they were interested in one another. Jacqueline had a lively, paradoxical mind and a feline sense of self-respect. She did not allow herself to pay attention to Kennedy's marital infidelities, and to him his wife remained a mystery. John felt that she was a head above the women with whom he dallied. He wanted to understand her. That is why their union did not fall apart. The shots in Dallas ended that strange marriage. America saw the dignity with which Jackie bore her cross and made her its idol. In truth, it was otherwise. Only an inborn ability to keep face helped her conceal her true state. Jackie was driven out of her mind by grief, scarcely understood what was happening around her, and clung to every man who crossed her path. The affair with Marlon Brando was brief. They met several times. He invited her over. Then, under the influence of passion and alcohol, the pair made love. There was no sequel. Brando did not fall in love. He collected women. Jackie tried to do the same. Soon she began a relationship with another screen idol, the handsome William Holden. Then, with former Secretary of Defense McNamara, she considered him the most likable member of the Kennedy cabinet. A little later came the turn of McNamara's deputy, Roswell Gilpatrick. But the feeling of inner emptiness did not leave her. Heavy depressions periodically rolled over Jackie, and at times she seriously thought of suicide. All her attachments were tied to her late husband. Brando was no exception. Psychoanalysts said that in this way, she tried to take revenge on John for his affairs with Audrey Hepburn and Grace Kelly. And soon she preferred to Kennedy's ministers his own kin. Patricia Kennedy, John's sister, hated Jacqueline with all her heart. Together with Patricia's husband, the actor Peter Lawford, Jackie spent 7 weeks in Hawaii. What infuriated Patricia most was that it was in Hawaii, the very place where she and Peter had spent their honeymoon. Listening to his wife's reproaches, Lawford only shrugged. Later, he admitted that there really had been something between him and Jackie, mainly because their confessions drew them together. Jackie complained to him about the late John's innumerable betrayals. Peter had grief of his own. Patricia was devout to a remarkable degree and, before giving herself to love, invariably crossed herself. Her pious caresses brought little joy. Peter, of course, could not explain any of this to his wife, and she stopped speaking to Jackie. Ethel Kennedy, the wife of Robert, John's beloved brother, fully shared her feelings. Bobby was the most sincere and decent man in the clan, and he approached life and women differently from John. John swam like a fish. Bobby barely kept afloat. John glided easily through life. Bobby suffered over every attachment. Bobby was at Jacqueline's side when things became unbearable. Only he could lift her out of her depressions. A year after John's death, they became lovers. It was in keeping with Kennedy family tradition. Women here passed for years, from father to son, and then from one brother to another. Bobby began seeing Marilyn Monroe after John dismissed her. They simply traded secretaries and starlets. With Jackie, things were different for Robert. It was the one great love of his life. Jackie felt the same. For him, she said of Bobby, I would put my hand in the fire. Security Service files recorded one typical evening for this pair in the second half of 1964. A meeting of the Kennedy Foundation in the New York restaurant The Four Seasons. An evening at the private club L'Interdit in Manhattan. A night in an apartment on Fifth Avenue. Those close to them knew that there was an affair between Bobby and Jackie. Their friends were sure it was love. For a full 3 years, she relied on him in everything, and he was beside himself with happiness. Bobby was a very reliable man, and though he had a wife and children, Jackie regarded him as a husband. He gave her what she had never received from John. She knew he would not betray her, that she could count on him in everything, that there was no other woman in the world for him. And she did not think about the future. In truth, they had no future. The clan had its own plans for Bobby. He was to inherit his slain brother. By every forecast, Bobby was set to outpace his competitors in the next presidential election. Rumors of an affair with the martyr's widow could jeopardize that. Jackie always realized that one day the clan would assert its rights over Bobby and that their break would be inevitable. Even so, Bobby's announcement that they could not continue seeing each other struck Jackie a heavy blow. Conquering a deep depression with the help of amphetamines, Jackie understood that she had to arrange a life of her own. Onassis had hunted her for a long time. The Greek millionaire was ugly and bisexual. He took equal pleasure in lovemaking with women and with beautiful boys. He was also known as a great fan of piquant cross-dressing. He was seen more than once in a brassiere, a skirt, and a woman's sweater, with earrings in his ears and lipstick on his lips. Under the name Ariana, Onassis staged unimaginable orgies on his enormous yacht. The rumors only stoked Jackie's curiosity. The news that Bobby Kennedy had entered the race for the White House delighted him. The kid will be too busy to stick his nose into Jackie's private life. He proposed to her. She accepted. Bobby learned of it and threw a fit. "For God's sake, Jackie, this will cost me 5 states." Jackie loved and respected Bobby, and she agreed to delay her decision. A month later, he was shot in the hall of the Ambassador Hotel. I hate this country," Jackie cried when she learned of his death. "I despise America, and I do not want my children to live here. If the Kennedys are being hunted, then my children are target number 1. I want to leave this country." Now marriage to Onassis seemed like salvation, and on the 25th of October 1968, they were wed on the Greek island of Scorpios. Jackie feared for her children and wanted to hide them on the other side of the world. After Bobby was gone, she did not think of happiness. Now she had to secure her fate. And Onassis had one important virtue. The old Greek was immeasurably rich. Her husband presented Jackie with an engagement ring worth $1,200,000. The press saw off her wedding cortege with whistles. "Jackie, do not do it. Today, John Kennedy died a second time. Jackie married a bank check. Jackie, how could you?" So ran the headlines that day. They made not the slightest impression on Jackie. $500 million, a private island, a luxurious apartment in Paris, a huge mansion in Uruguay, and a villa on the Greek coast outweighed anything the journalists could say. Besides, she felt good with Onassis. Onassis's personal secretary wrote of their incredible physical attraction to each other. The crew of his yacht, Christina, confirmed it. The sailors stumbled upon the spouses in ecstatic embrace absolutely everywhere. On deck, in the launch, even in the lifeboats. The steward serving Onassis's private jet once caught his employer and Jackie at the most interesting moment. They did not notice him. The pair were so absorbed in one another that they allowed the steward to come within arm's reach. 3 months later, it was over. Onassis flew to Paris to meet his longtime lover, the opera diva Maria Callas. Jackie no longer cared. A new passion had appeared in her life. She began to throw money around with abandon. In a single shopping trip, she would spend more than $40,000. Dropping by a fur salon for a seal fur coat, she would also buy a sable. Jacqueline acquired her favorite designers' collections in full series. In the single year 1969 alone, 300 pairs of shoes appeared in her wardrobe. The $30,000 that Onassis paid Jackie each month proved catastrophically insufficient. Every year, $5,000 went merely to shipping purchases, $7,500 to cosmetics, $6,000 to the dogs, $5,000 to flowers. In 9 days in Tehran, Jacqueline spent $650,000 and once again complained to her husband about a lack of money. She tormented herself with dieting and developed bulimia. Jackie ruined her magnificent hair with dye and hot irons. In the end, it thinned badly. Onassis grew tired of Jackie. Her senseless extravagance annoyed him. He had grown old, sex no longer attracted him, and his wife bored him. Jackie was lucky. Her husband did not have time to push matters to divorce. He died suddenly in Paris at the age of 75. The widow learned of his death in the bedroom. She was sitting before a mirror, admiring her hairstyle. "Dead!" Jackie arched an eyebrow and slightly adjusted her fringe. "Then please give me the telephone." She called her lawyer and warned him of the coming battle over the inheritance, then rang her favorite designer, Valentino. He had long promised to make her a stunning black dress for her husband's funeral. Jacqueline succeeded in winning from Onassis's daughter a considerable share of the estate. Now she could live for her own pleasure. buy new dresses, change the household staff, experiment with her hair. But soon the world beheld a completely new Jackie O. Later people said that the cause of everything was illness. Jackie learned that she had cancer. A carcinogen was present in the black hair dye she had abused so desperately, and decided to change her life drastically. Up at 9 in the morning, a walk in the park, a bicycle ride after lunch, sessions at a fitness club 3 times a week. The society lioness turned into a modest employee at the New York publishing house Doubleday, editing other people's manuscripts 3 times a week. She ate lunch in the staff cafeteria, mothered younger colleagues, and made the coffee herself. The metamorphosis was complete. Jackie changed not only her way of life, but her very character. She became much gentler, stopped tyrannizing servants, and her grandchildren adored her. Few knew that she still had a man in her life. At 64, Jackie found a new companion, the 70-year-old diamond dealer Maurice Templesman, an elegant and well-bred man of the world. Jackie's farewell note became one of the American legends. It was addressed to her granddaughter and began with the words, "Thank you, my dear." As for the demons that lurked beneath the mask so carefully fitted to Jackie's face, her family and friends prefer not to remember them.